Dana White Contender Series thus far has been a feeding ground for favorites to go in and get the job done. There's been 10 total fights. We're 2 weeks in. 9 favorites have come through. Only one underdog. That one underdog was Rami Ahmed in week 1. Moving forward, Dana White Contender Series seems to be where a spot where underdogs can come through. But thus far, we haven't seen it. Last week, if you watched the breakdown, I picked all 5 favorites. I said, I think these are the guys that are probably going to win. And might not be the sexy picks, but all 5 favorite won. So I guess going into this week, I don't know if this trend of favorites winning every single time is going to continue. I would expect some regression. But either way, I'm going to go through these 5 fights for episode number 3. I'll give you a breakdown. I'll give you a pick, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to bet on them because picks are not bets. At the end of the day, picks are not bets. But on the show, we're 9-1 for picks, and we are profitable through 2 weeks. We made money both weeks on Dana White Contender Series through the bets. So let's hop right into it, man. We got a good lineup here. Been watching film yesterday and all this morning. Feel confident enough to break down these fights and give you some insight. First fight of the night, we got Jack Duffy and Nick Piccininni. So it looks like Nick Piccininni is going to be the third opponent for Jack Duffy. He was supposed to fight Mitch Raposo. Raposo gets signed to the UFC in an absolutely boring fight, but that's not here nor there. He gets booked against some other guy. That guy has to pull out, and Nick Piccininni, very hard to say that. I'm just going to call him Nick. Nick steps in. He's undefeated, and he's a good prospect, man. I can't look past this guy as far as what he could be in the UFC. He's got D1 wrestling, wrestled at Oklahoma State, I believe. I think he was an All-American. Undefeated, 6-0. He's a guy that has trained at AKA, and on Tapology it says his coach is Daniel Cormier. I don't think his coach is Daniel Cormier anymore, but he's still got that experience. He trained at AKA, and you could see it when you watch him fight. He's a guy that wants to take you to the ground. He's a wrestler. Get you to the ground. He's going to try to lace the legs just like the Habibs would do type of thing. If you don't know, AKA is like the Habibs, Cormier, Luke Rock, like good fighters have come through AKA. Now it looks like he's at Fortis MMA in Texas, which is a gym I'm not so high on. Won't tell you why, but it just seems like their game plans are really bad. And honestly, when I look at Nick's, I just can't say his last name. When I look at Nick's fights, I'm like, what is this guy doing? Because he has the wrestling where he could just take down anybody, make it look easy, take him to the ground and pound, soften him up, look for a submission, and at times he's just standing there striking with dudes. For what? I guess maybe to get some experience. I mean, he's won every fight, so he hasn't lost. He's finished 5 of those fights, I believe. He's a solid fighter and a really solid prospect just because he has that D1 wrestling base. On the other side, Jack Duffy, undefeated as well. Very weird career, though. The guy's 28 years old, but he made his professional MMA debut in 2012, 12 years ago. So it means he was 16, 17 years old when he made his professional MMA debut. He's only had 7 fights. He had a long period of inactivity with like 4 or 5 canceled bouts. He comes back, picks up a win. His last win was by decision, pretty dominant decision at that. He's a grappler too, man. He's not going to have the wrestling of a Nick. I just can't even say his name. He won't have Nick's wrestling, but he's a much better grappler when it comes to getting the back, smothering you. And that's where he's going to need to win this fight. Because on the feet, I don't think either guy are that great of a striker. And honestly, I've seen Nick get dropped in a couple of his fights. So question the durability a bit. But I don't really see that as Jack Duffy's game plan. His game plan every single fight is to go in there, try to take you down, try to get your back, look for a submission, look for a rear naked choke, and try to get you out of there. Very relentless with it. And honestly, I think if Nick goes for takedowns here, I think Jack Duffy could have some success just finding scrambles and finding better positions. This guy is very good. Jack Duffy is very good at finding your back, locking in the body triangle, and just riding it out. Very good control, sticky. He's a guy that's not going to let you breathe in there. Pretty solid pace as well. It was good to see him in the 3-rounder, his last fight, where he was just dominating the entire fight, just on top of him. He had a couple chokes that were locked in that looked like they could have been finished, but they weren't. There's a lot of question marks with Jack Duffy because I don't know what his mindset is coming into this. I know he's been a pro for a long time. I know he wants to go in there and get a win, of course, but this is his moment. He's been a pro for over 12 years. Like, the pressure's probably on. On the other side, Nick, like, he's been a D1 wrestler. He's been in these big spots before. He's still pretty young in his career, especially in his professional MMA career. Maybe, he can afford a loss. But at the end of the day, I think I'm going to go with Jack Duffy here, just because I think Nick's game plan of wrestling could get him into some troubling spots, because I don't think he's a great striker. He probably possesses a lot more power than Jack Duffy, but I've seen him hurt. I've seen him in some tough spots where he's on top trying to defend arm bars. And honestly, I don't think his top control is anything too crazy. Now, if he can wear out Jack Duffy to the point where Jack's on his back for long periods of time, and Jack is like, I'm really struggling to get my game going here, then I can see the tides turning in Nick's favor. But Jack's a guy that comes out hot. He knows exactly what he needs to do to go in there and get a win. So I'm going to go with Jack Duffy. I believe he's an underdog here. And I can see why. I think he's probably rightfully the underdog. But I'm going to take him because I think he can find the scrambles. He can find his moments, get to the back. And I haven't really seen Nick with a guy on his back. I don't know how his submission defense is when he's not in control. And if he's going to have a wrestling-heavy game plan, that just kind of plays into Jack's game of wanting to be a grappling fest. And I think that's a good spot for Jack. So I'm going to take Jack Duffy for a pick. It's not a very confident one because he is a pretty sizable dog here, I believe. But I think he gets it done, man. Longer training camp as well. That's what I got on that one. We can move on. We got Malcolm Wellmaker taking on Adam Brahmhald. Very weird names. The Dana White Contender Series names are just wild. I mean, Jack Duffy is probably the easiest name to pronounce out of anybody. Wellmaker and Brahmhald. So we'll start with Wellmaker. Undefeated guy out of Georgia, 30 years old. I think he comes into this one with a bit of momentum, and he's had some pretty nice knockouts. But when you watch tape on him, he's a little bit low volume. Mainly a boxer. He does have some takedown upside here, but I don't really see him going towards it unless he's hurt. He's a guy that wants to stand in front of you, look for his boxing combinations. He's got tight combinations. I really like his boxing. I just wish he would go a little bit more. Solid jab. Can be long with the jab. He's going to be not undersized here, but I think, at kicking range, we'll get into Brahmhald, but at kicking range, he's going to struggle a little bit because he has decent kicks himself, but at range, he likes to just defend. He's not a guy that's going to press forward, getting to boxing combinations or getting to boxing range and unleash combinations. He's going to try to counter you, and at times, when he's at kicking range, when people throw at him, he's just defending. He's just defending, and he's not really giving anything back for his opponent to think about, which I don't really like. On the Brahmhald side, he's a Muay Thai guy, tall, rangy. I love that he finishes almost every combination with a kick. He's going to throw a 1-2 with a leg kick, 2-3 with a body kick. He's going to end every combination with some type of kick because he's got that Muay Thai background. Mixes in the knees. I mean, he mixes in everything. They say Muay Thai is the art of 8 limbs or whatever. He's got the elbows, he's got the fists, he's got the knees, he's got the kicks. He mixes in everything a lot better on the feet than I think Wellmaker does. It's going to come down to one thing, and it's if Wellmaker can find a knockout. If he can find a knockout, obviously he's going to win. But I think Brahmhald is going to be winning the fight until he's not. Because on the feet, he's got more volume, he's got more options, and I think he's got a little bit better of a pace. And Wellmaker's probably just going to be looking for that one KO blow. I think Wellmaker's a slight favorite, if I remember correctly. And I'm going to go with Brahmhald, man. I think he should be able to eat the shots, eat the boxing from Wellmaker, And I think he could just overwhelm him with the pressure, with the volume, mixing in everything, ending everything with a kick. Looks better to the judges. He's got some nice trips as well. He can be taken down, but in every fight that I've watched, he's been able to get back to his feet and rally. He's on a nice, long winning streak. He hasn't lost, I don't think, in like 9 or 10 fights. More professional MMA experience. So I'm going to go with Adam Brahmhald here as the underdog, the Englishman getting it done. And I think it's probably going to happen by decision. I think he just outvolumes him, and they go to the judges' scorecards and just did a lot more work. And I think Wellmaker is going to learn from that. He'll come back soon enough with a different game plan. I just don't think his game plan right now is good enough to win via the scorecards. Obviously, he can knock him out, but I'll take Brahmhald for a pick. Moving on, we got Marco Tulio taking on Matthieu Duclos. And Tulio was a guy that was on the Contender Series last year against UC Bulgari. Bulgari is the training partner of Alex Pereira, who had a good amount of hype coming into this. He's fought Israel Adesanya before. He's fought Alex Pereira before. And Tulio went in there and beat him, but he did not get a contract. Why? Because he was using a lot of takedowns, a lot of ground control, and won a decision, which Danny did not really like. But they bring him back here. Since then, he's picked up a win. Shoot the box guy. I mean, I wouldn't really classify him as one of those shoot the box guys that's just like all out pressure, all out chaos. He's a guy that's a little bit more relaxed in there. He's not going to be pressing forward like a Charles Oliveira, just eating shots, looking for some type of finish. He's a little bit more calculated. He's got decent takedowns. He can get you to the ground, solid top control, good submissions, good ground and pound. And I think that's probably his best path to victory here against Matthieu Duclos, because Duclos, pretty inexperienced guy. He hasn't really been fighting the best competition out of France. He's a tall guy, though, tall, rangy guy. He's going to be, he'll look good at range. At kicking range, he uses his kicks a lot. I don't think his hands are really that great. He does find some shots, when he's getting pressed on the back foot. He does counter back with some solid hooks. If Tulio's trying to close the range and he doesn't have his guard up, he could get clipped by something from Duclos. But at kicking range, he'll probably be leading the dance. I think Tulio has a lot more power. I think he could probably knock out Duclos or just ride out another decision, whether it's getting takedowns. Duclos, I don't think has the best ground game. He's actually fought in Bellator before, and he got sparked. I think it was round 1. Got sparked. Other than that, his level of competition is not very good. So I'm going to go with Marco Tulio for a pick here. I think he's a big favorite. I think he gets it done. I think he probably gets a contract. It'd be wild to me if Tulio wins here and they don't give him a contract, considering he'd be 12-1 from shoot to box. He's a solid fighter. I think he should be able to win here and make it into the UFC. I don't think he'll have a great UFC career, but good enough to win this fight. I don't think too highly of Duclos outside of his kicks. So give me Tulio. From here, we can look at last week's results. Dana White Contender Series Week 2, we went up plus 1.4 units. If you look at this, we went 2-4 on our bets. But believe it or not, you could still profit if you go 2 out of 4 bets. Because why? We hit Cody Haddon by submission at plus 700. That's a big hit. The biggest play we had, over 1.5 rounds hit. And then the other 4 were all just quarter unit sprinkles. So we went up plus 1.4 units. That's back-to-back winning weeks on Dana White Contender Series. If you want those bets, jump in the Home Fight Picks Premium membership. The link is down in the description below. Get your UFC, PFL, Dana White Contender Series year to date. As of yesterday, we're positive 31.71 units year to date. And I usually have some DFS plays as well. So join up there. That's where you get the bets. I'll give you the breakdown and the pick here. That doesn't always mean what I'm going to be betting on. Move along. We got Michael Aswell and Bogdan Grad. Bogdan Grad, victim of Tom Nolan on the Contender Series last year. Got absolutely sparked. Absolutely sparked. It was a vicious, 60 seconds that he was in there with Tom Nolan. He got dropped initially, got back up, and got dropped again and knocked out. So he comes back. He's moving down a weight class. That was at 155. He's going down to 145. I think that's probably a solid move for him. Maybe that's a little hasty move for him because, Tom Nolan's 6'3". Very, very tall guy. And maybe he's like, if I'm going to be in the UFC, I got to be a 145. Looks like he's in incredible shape. Dude's got veins popping out of everywhere. His problem in that fight with Tom Nolan is I don't think he's ever faced a guy that was 6'3", because he literally just stood at kicking range and got kicked and then tried to rush in and got hit with a straight left down the pipe. That was a bad game plan for him. But he's a solid fighter, man. 13-2. Good overall fighter as well. He's got some solid submissions in his bag, but he's mostly a stand-up guy who's dynamic in the way that he moves, solid hands, mixes in some knees, mixes in some kicks. Good all-around MMA fighter, in my opinion. Michael Aswell, on the other hand, I think he's more of a boxer who has very solid pace, very solid pressure, solid combinations, but I think he lacks just a little bit of that one-shot knockout power. He's got a good amount of wins by decision, which on the regional scene doesn't really look great to me. His only loss was to a guy who was undefeated at the time. I think he might still be undefeated. Cuban guy who just smothered him in round 1, nearly got him out of there with a submission, a rear naked choke, I believe. And then towards rounds 2 and 3, it was a stand-up battle, and Aswell had his moments, but ultimately lost that fight. I think he's coming off a knockout in round 1, which looked pretty nice, but I don't put too much stock into that. He's a solid boxer with good pace, good volume, and I think if he can extend this fight, then he can have a lot of success. But I think starting off, Bogdan Grad's going to have some success with the kicks, with his combinations. He can mix in a takedown. He can have success with the ground game because I don't think Aswell has the best ground game, and Bogdan has a big advantage there, in my opinion. And if he goes to it, I think he can make this a lot easier for himself, but it's the Contender Series. It's really tough to rely on guys to just go to a ground game when it's not really their forte. So I don't know. I think this one's a toss-up, man. I think this is a really solid fight. It'll be really close. I'm going to side with Bogdan Grad just because he's got that experience being on the Contender Series. I think he's the better overall fighter, more well-rounded. But, if he can allow Michael Aswell, I don't know how to say it, Aswell, to get into this fight with his pace and get downhill, then it could go very poorly for him. But I'm going to trust his experience, trust the move down to 145. I think he's very strong, and I think he could probably bully Aswell if that's part of his game plan. At the end of the day, we can't give these guys game plans. They got to come with it themselves. I think he gets it done. I'll take Bogdan Grad. To the main event, we got Andrey Pulyaev taking on Liam Anderson. Andrey Pulyaev was very tough to find any film on him. I only got to watch one fight because I couldn't find anything else. Because he's been fighting in these Russian promotions. Pretty tough to find film on Russian promotions, especially when they're not like the big ones. So I watched one fight on him. I wasn't too impressed. It was a round 3 armbar, which was wild. But he's nearly 27 years old. He's a tall guy. They don't have his height and reach on here, but he's a tall guy. I think he's probably 6'3" at the very least, maybe 6'4", a little bit skinnier. I don't think he's the best athlete. I watched this guy striking. It was not impressive. He's tall. He's going to throw those kicks up the middle, teep kicks, body kicks, but his hands are not good. He could throw a jab out there. Sure, he's going to be long with that jab, but the guy gets pressured, and he does not look good. He does not look good at all. His wrestling game is okay. I don't think he's one of these Russian wrestlers that you should be worried about. Could he get on top of Liam Anderson? Sure. But I don't really think he's that great overall. I look at Liam Anderson. Liam Anderson getting into his prime here, 29 years of age, nearly 30. Pretty big dude for 185, 6'3", 74-inch reach. He's got a pretty solid grappling game. Can be taken down, and that's really my main concern in this fight because if he's on his back and he's losing minutes, that's not going to look good. But when he's offensively grappling, he's got some decent submissions. His stand-up, I think, is a little bit more aggressive. I would say a lot more aggressive than Pulyaev's. Pulyaev's is not an aggressive striker. This guy wants to just stick at range. Liam Anderson is a little bit more downhill. He's going to throw his hands pretty hard. He can get clipped in the process of that. He's been hurt in a couple fights, but he's found a way to get back into it. He's on a 4-fight win streak. both of his losses came pretty early in his career. I think he got starched in like his first ever professional MMA fight. He got starched in round 1. But, his last few fights, he's looked pretty decent. I don't know the level of competition is really that great. All these guys in the Contender Series, it's tough to really gauge their level of competition. But Liam Anderson's been getting it done. I think on the feet, he's going to have the heavier hands. I think he's going to be the one with more aggression. I think he can get some offensive wrestling going too. And he's just got to mind his P's and Q's. I think he wins minutes in this fight as long as he's not on his back. On the feet, I think he's got better striking. On the ground, if he can get on top, he can win minutes that way. He can look for submissions there. But if he finds himself on his back, it might not go well. Maybe he can find a submission off his back, but I'm going to bet that Liam Anderson can take control of this fight and get a win. So give me Liam Anderson. I'm going to fade the V, the last name V, which is something I rarely do, but I was just not impressed with this guy at Pulyaev at all. At all. Looking at his film, I was just like, this is what I'm getting, man? Like Andrey Pulyaev. Sounds like a scary name. From Russia. Big dude, 6'4". Just no aggression on the feet. Not a lot of urgency at all. So I think Liam Anderson comes into this one. It's more of a Contender Series type of fighter. Guy that's going to go for it, look for a finish. And I think he gets it done. That's all I got. Appreciate you for watching. Like and subscribe. If you enjoyed the content, comment down below what your picks are. Let me know. And, of course, stay tuned for the bets on the Humble Fight Picks Premium membership. Till next time, hey, Joe Picks.